Today, I'd like to welcome Chris Gelin to our of Opus Audio Studios to our show. Chris is a live band audio engineer and former head of production and chief engineer at Lincoln Hall, providing consultation in studio design and with a highly remote work structure. A craft audio approach can be achieved with any client or anywhere in the world, and I find that to be, that's the beginning of talking about Opus Studios, and I find that we do a lot of remote. So we do a lot of those things. And so someone who specializes in doing this in audio, when it was brought up, I was like, oh, we got to get this. We got to get Chris on. So we are really, really excited. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, you guys. I really, really appreciate being a part of this, and it's such a cool thing. So thank you for having me.
Tell us more about what you do with Opus.
Yeah, so essentially, first off, my name is Chris Gelin. I'm an audio engineer outside of Chicago. My company is Opus Audio Labs, which is a mixing and mastering service, which definitely extends into consultation and studio design as well. I'm a second-generation engineer. When I was 14, I got just obsessed with studio recording.
So what you're saying is you're a NEPA baby.
Maybe.
I always think it's funny. I only bring this up. I always bring this up because I'm like, 100 years ago, everyone was NEPA. Like everybody did what their parents did. You know, like you were around your parents and you had this huge advantage that you were able to. So you got to watch it. Now, what did your dad do?
Live audio.
So you grew up in this. So you were
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you were a little. I'm very.
I was a roadie. I wouldn't be that jealous of it. It wasn't that fun. It was mostly moving really heavy stuff in very hot conditions. So,
how old were you when you learned over under? That's the question. When did you start? 10. He had you rolling cables. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So
that's how people get into the business. Anyway, so go ahead.
Essentially, when I was 14 or so, I got just completely obsessed with studio recording, started kind of really getting random pieces that were available to me, and putting those together to just kind of play with, just in a bedroom setup and just kind of figure that stuff out. And really, when I got my first apartment, I just turned I had a couple of roommates, and I turned my bedroom just into a studio, closet, vocal booth deal, and it just kind of built through that. And I ended up being hired to design and operate the Morse Theater in Rogers Park in, I think it was about 2004. Yeah. And we opened 2008. And this place was just a multi-million-dollar facility it was essentially like a $10 million 300 cap jazz club. And just insane. So we had, it was a full recording studio, full live sound stage.
And you designed it? Did you design the audio? And how much of a difference does it make? So a lot of times we have people you have integrators that come in and they build these things out and they do a good job and everything else. But how does it change when you've actually done lots of recording? So you've done lots of recording, and how do you approach that design that you think is different than what you would get with a standard person that's just going to kind of come in and build it out?
It just depends, because every situation is completely its own. Mm-hmm. And so I think in a lot of these situations, I think it's really, really important to just find out, like, what is your job? What's actually trying to be achieved here? What is our real end result? And really, with anyone who's ever designing any kind of like event space, the real thing that you're facilitating is the largest thing that you want to have there. Nothing else actually matters. It's, if you have dreams of like once a year bringing in some, whatever huge band, like you have to be able to facilitate that. And so it's really, that's kind of the benchmark as far as my approach. It's buy it once, buy the right stuff once, get the quality stuff. For anyone out there who's just starting to get into this, save your money and get the things slowly as you go. It's better to have, for years and years, I had 4 quality channels of preamps, and I can kind of get into this. It's a little bit after where I'm at now, but I would just have crazy musicians in my apartment, and we would be this would be like, it's like John Mayall and stuff, like old, like blues legends and just crazy stuff. And I was cutting this stuff with 4 microphones in a bedroom. And we got amazing recordings, and it's just so flexible because you're starting out with even your few ingredients. They're really, really high quality. So if you got to work around that, you find the limitations within that. Embrace your limitations because they make you commit to really great ideas from the beginning, and then you have to hold through to them. So I don't know. I think that it's just about being open and digging into that stuff. And once you get an idea of really how this stuff works, because there's the idea of what something's going to do when it's done, and then there's the reality of like, okay, this is going to cost more money. This is going to cost 4 years longer than you thought it would. This is going to, whatever. When you're actually building these things, if you don't have budgets like that, I mean, obviously, if you ever see a building just get like built overnight, like it was really expensive.
And what is it? So, and when you start, like, let's say that at a large venue and you start designing it, where do you start? Do you start with the space itself and figuring out how that's going to work?
It's the space and the vision. I mean, the Morse Theater, that was done heavily in conjunction with T.C. Furlong, who's like one of the best, if not the best, room designer in the country. I mean, he's the absolute top guy. So I had just a wealth of resource coming into this that was at the time absolutely beyond what my knowledge base was. So I had a lot of just help from different things because there's mixing, but then there's actually setting up infrastructure for this stuff. Yeah. And like all of a sudden you're talking about like load bearing, so your speakers don't fall from the ceiling and kill everyone. It's a little things like this. This is really paramount. Exactly. Yeah. The structural engineering, all these aspects, it all matters. And I mean, like power, your clean power. It's like, this is a huge thing. If you don't have good power, it's not going to facilitate to its full potential. Right. So
what do you think people miss when they build those facilities? So from an AV perspective,
everyone thinks about sound last.
Right.
Absolutely.
There's that.
It's like, this is physics, this is math and science. It's nothing other than that. And so if you set this up to completely fail as an afterthought, because you didn't have the wherewithal to understand that, all this, XYZ, whatever.
All this glass looks amazing.
Exactly. We had all these things in here that we thought aesthetically, wow, they really looked so premium and great. And it's like, yeah, that's all super reflective. Yeah. This is, even if this room is full of people, it's not going to eat this. And it's just going to be issue. So if you set all this stuff up, and I try and approach every aspect of my life in this regard, if you set things up for like real efficiency and for real success from the very beginning, it's just make sure all your ingredients are right and the meal tastes better.
And what is and from a pipeline perspective, you get all the audio, let's say you get the audio right, what are you putting on stage? What are you putting in the studio? Where are you kind of tying all those things together, or how are you tying them together?
That spot specifically was insane because this is a 300 cap room, right? So this is not a huge space. Right. And it's which
is the best, by the way,
and a balcony. It's awesome. I mean, the thing is there's real magic that can happen in these small spaces that just can't happen in a stadium.
Right? I was a music director for a long time, and so I went to a lot of hundreds and hundreds of shows, and I found that the 300 to 500 range was that was the size that I thought was the most magical. It was just this incredible space where you had enough crowd enough people to have crowd energy, but not so many that you got lost, and you could still design the audio.
Yeah. And actually, Alex, I'm not sure. It's funny. After the Morse Theater, that whole situation was like a movie, and it ended up closing and switching our. It was a movie. It was kind of a wild thing, but it was closed down. It was given to some other folks to run. At that time, I was hired by the folks at Lincoln Hall who were just designing Lincoln Hall. I moved into that. I came in a week or so before they opened and just kind of trained folks on how to use the console and stuff. And me and three other people were the full production team. It was three audio guys and a lighting person. And we, that was like the skeleton crew, and we just ran these shows. It was insane, and the people playing there were insane. And it was very similar. Actually, I met the Shuba brothers who owned it at the time at the Morse Theater because they were looking for new ideas for their new design. So there was a lot of my design from the Morse Theater actually went into into Lincoln Hall without without me even knowing it. So I kind of got to show
And
up
what do
to
you
this
think?
new
What
room.
do you think? What did they take? What was the key design elements that they took when they went from one to the other?
I just same console essentially.
What kind of console do you use?
So we're
a bunch of geeks, so we're going to ask you about like what are all the buttons.
I'm all in whatever you guys want. I'm super happy to dive in. So at the Morse Theater, that was like a crazy setup because it was just obscene. And so like what it was, I had bought a Digidesign Venue Profile at the time, which was their smaller formats of the Venue, consoles, because they had like a D show that was, just 96 channel insane thing that we didn't need. So I got the Profile, and right at that time their mix rack had just been released. So I remember we skipped like the front of house rack solutions and all that, went to a mix rack. So it was just running copper lines essentially to a front of house position in more of a standard kind of way. Whereas with a lot of these boxes, you're actually having like a complete digital IO on stage. Right. So everything's running to that. And then you've got like, it's super easy. I mean, there's a bunch of different protocols for these different consoles. Some of them use fiber. Some of them are just using Ethernet, like, Cat 5, Cat 6.
Are you using is it Dante or is it?
No, that one, this is old. I mean, these consoles just got discontinued. They didn't even have Dante.
Right.
They didn't even have that. Yeah. I don't believe.
What would you use today?
Yeah. So for me, like live wise, what would I use? I mean, probably S6Ls. I love Avid stuff. It's the stuff I know. I use Pro Tools in the studio. But honestly, this is all my company now is actually in more of an effort. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, so it's kind of more about me actually working at home and being around my kids.
So now, what do you do at home? What when you say working at home, what are you doing? Yeah,
so this is my company now. So Opus Audio Labs is now it's a mixing and mastering service. And the way this actually came about was not at all a planned thing. It was because of the pandemic. So and it just kind of naturally evolved, like I think it did for a really lot of people. And definitely anyone with a studio was like, okay, I can't leave my house. Luckily, my work is here. How what do I do? And essentially, Henry Garza from Los Lonely Boys had called me in the very beginning of 2020, like January or February, and asked if I could help him design a studio. And so I said, of course. We start kind of putting stuff together, start making orders as stuff is showing up. He's flying me down there, and I'm just kind of going back and forth, and we're implementing this space. And literally, like, it's funny because I'm in the airport, and people are seeing a lot of masks, and it's like, what's going on? And right when we had just gotten like the bulk of our stuff like installed and set up, and I came home, and the whole world shut down. And so all of a sudden, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? Because just at the time, while he's incredibly technical now, he was not at all when we were first building this stuff.
Right.
And it is a really lot this was not, it wasn't a little thing. It was
it wasn't. You didn't throw a couple pieces together,
No, this is like a full studio. This is all Rupert Neve designs, like outboard preamps and digital console, and I mean just the whole thing all at once. So it's a really lot to take in, and it's a huge learning curve for anyone, right? I learn things every day in this still, right? If I'm not learning, I'm not doing my job. So it's this stuff is paramount. But everything shut down, and so all of a sudden I can't go there, I can't operate this, and so we started looking at just remote solutions, right? And this was like an arduous and tumultuous journey of just he and I spending endless hours testing things not working. Finally you get somewhere, then it's not working, then a better thing comes out, whatever. And so this all just kind of built up, and we actually found these real solutions, right? So now it really is just through using a plugin called Audiomovers, which will actually do a lot more than I typically use it for. You can fully, I believe, multi-track remotely onto your system from like over the internet, other sources if you need. For me, I don't really want that. So it's more about what we're doing is within the Pro Tools structure. right now everything I'm mixing is just a stereo deal. I'm not doing any kind of Atmos or surround or anything. So it's really easy. This all is going to culminate in a stereo mix bus. Like it has to, right? It has to go out that way. So it's really easy to pop on just a stereo send and stream the output of your master bus in Pro Tools, in Logic, in
And
any
are you
kind of
controlling it
situation.
remotely?
So here's what I do. I use Zoom and I link in and I take control of Henry's computer or whoever's computer. Any client that I'm working with, I can send links. I send 2 links. I send one for Zoom, which has the remote feature. I don't use any of the audio functionality in Zoom. It's just never been a workable thing for me. But streaming with Audiomovers, it's 24-bit lossless audio. And so it is just really, really clean and really fast. And it's funny because there's a certain level of just consumery kind of operation in here that I've found, but my clients are so busy and everyone's so all over the place where you might look at it as like a gimmicky thing. It actually is the ultimate time saver and facilitator in my day all day with all of my clients. And it really is just being able to stream the output of a session. I can stream it to your cell phone.
Right.
I can stream it to your laptop. I can do to whatever, wherever you are. And so I mean, I'll call up a multi-platinum artist and they're out to dinner with their family and we're working on, 10 songs at once. And I'm like, hey, I need you to hear this vocal edit or whatever.
Right.
Can you step away? And they can pop out into the lobby and I can play from them. Oh, that's great, man. Awesome. Cool. High five. Enjoy your dinner. Talk soon. And
and that also comes from the trust. Like they know that if it sounds reasonably good to them, they know that you know how to make it.
Oh yeah,
and you're going to cover all the bases. I mean, that part of that what makes that easy is the fact that they have a lot of trust in your ability to tweak all the little bits and pieces.
Like that's never a quality check on that. That's a performance thing.
Exactly.
Right. When we do this, I mean, Jojo, who's the bassist for Los Lonely Boys, I mean, he and I are the production team for all of this stuff. Like, absolutely. And this is a very close knit thing. He's super involved in my mixing process. I'm very involved in all these different aspects with him. And it's, between us, it's really like dig in and try all the stuff. Right. There's so many options and there's no bad idea. We know right away if something's not going to work, but frequently we just have the same idea because the song clearly wants that thing. You know, so when you're working with really, really brilliant songwriters and musicians, it's just a completely different game.
And so you're building these studios, though. You start with Los Lonely Boys, but you're building them for other artists as well.
Yeah, and let me digress a little. So essentially, in the case with Henry, I built this whole analog and whole studio front end, couldn't operate it, figured out the remote aspect, and then on the back end, I figured, well, you know what? If I get an analog mix bus on my side and I get the same headphone amp as Henry, we're plugged into the same console now, right? All of a sudden, I can create this bass line, and that's kind of how this is really developed, is through Rupert Neve Designs gear heavily. I'm essentially creating an analog console and cracking it apart and making it a la carte and putting whatever I need fully modular with that mindset. We all have the same headphone amps. We all have the same headphones. And this actually extends into putting in the same monitoring system that I have. So so it's really, really easy to actually create these bass lines. So I do this with Jimmy Chamberlain as well. He and we have the same monitors. He has a full Rupert Neve analog front end, 16 channels of Shelford preamps on back end here. Again, I mean, I can be streaming a mix. He can be listening to it on the same speakers I'm mixing on. Right. This is really, really powerful. It's really fast and it's really easy. So it's so convenient when people only have a couple minutes and it's like, look, I could drive to you, set this up, we can do all that. And that might take an hour, 2 hours, or I can spitch out a link real quick. And in 5 minutes, this thing is done and we're right. And talk to you later. For the artist, I think it makes a big difference too, because they're not going into a studio. These are mostly at their house, right? I mean, this is absolutely. And so this is another thing is like, I mean, the music industry has changed just drastically. And I mean, absolutely. I know people with amazing big studios, right? I know a ton of folks. There's at any point I can go and use any kind of large format console I want or any piece of gear or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's all very available, and I never do that. I have everything I need here.
Right.
I'm not sacrificing anything, and it's really easy to put that level of tracking setup in someone's home and actually, in a really knowledgeable way, correct whatever physics and acoustic issues there are in the room. This stuff it's really blatant to me, so it's really obvious.
And when you're doing that mix, how much of it is how much in that mix are you like? Do you have a witness camera, a GoPro? Is it just their webcam? Or
no,
is it...
so this is the thing is and I have a couple different iterations of this setup. Some of them are incredibly more complicated and some are really, really easy. So the easy way is really just be on FaceTime. Someone's got a phone or something. Yeah. All these artists have at least a cell phone and a computer with speakers.
Yeah.
So you're FaceTiming, you can mute yourselves when, if you're not talking. And I'm just streaming 24-bit lossless audio out into their studio. They're hearing exactly what I have going, and I'm sharing my screen with them. So they're actually watching what I'm doing if they need to be. If they're sitting in, a lot of times I'm just doing this and then we link up after and I get my notes, whatever, or there's no notes. It just depends on what the thing is.
Right.
But it's just very collaborative.
And how much like with preamps, for instance, how much control do you want to have? Like Neve makes a couple, I think it's the 10730 or whatever that has the remote control, and then there's the analog, and then there's the where do you kind of sit in those?
So that's actually your different companies what you're talking about. So and a lot of people don't actually understand or know this aspect of it, but Rupert Neve is like hands down, if not the absolute best audio mind in history. He's like one of the top 5. I mean, there's just some incredible, George Massenburg, another one. I mean, there's just people who they're so pivotal that they change everything. Rupert Neve did that with his 1073 preamp, right? In the 70s, Rupert Neve sold Neve. He sold the company to AMS. So after the 70s, anything that just says Neve with the red N, Neve, that's AMS Neve. That's not Rupert Neve Designs.
Just has his name.
Well, because he sold the company, but I believe in 2006 he restarted as Rupert Neve Designs R&D, and that is exclusively the only thing I'm messing with.
Got it.
That's in all of these designs. That's actually that is Rupert Neve.
There was another company, wasn't there? Another company that's based on some folks that left Neve to build their own.
There's
preamps.
a million. Yeah. Well, there's Trident. There was a ton of these guys all were working in, a collaborative way, like way back when. People don't understand. My dad rented Neotech, their first storefront in Chicago. It was across the street from Shuba's on Southport. And these were completely custom made, and they had tons of issues, right? So it was like in the very beginning, this is the most archaic thing ever. You're telling people, hey, I want this. I want these, these feature sets, these options. But there's a guy across the street and he's got a 25-foot CB antenna on his roof.
Right.
All day. Yeah, right. Guess what? Nothing matters now because everyone's listening to Taxis. So,
tin foil, turns out.
Oh, man. Well, the Morse Theater was wrapped in copper.
Right.
The entire building was wrapped in copper.
I bet you the cell coverage wasn't very good in there.
No, but we had no interference.
Living in a Faraday cage.
Exactly.
It was amazing. It was crazy.
Oh man. The the commitment to analog, does that mean that more of your artists have to ask them to do stuff, so you can't go in there and just kind of take over?
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, like Henry's studio, I do everything except move microphones and turn preamps. Right? And so adjust those. Not a big deal. It's really not a difficult thing. I'm right there. If a level needs to be adjusted, I'm telling them exactly what to do and how much to do, and we're doing it together. So it's really a walkthrough. I mean, this is kind of a take you by the hand and guide you through this process. And I have situations all the time where someone calls me up and they're like, hey, this ain't working. I'm having it, cool. here's the links, click them, and I can just hop on their machine. I can get on their computer and I can just fix it for them.
That's
And
great.
it's really, really convenient because, again, there's not an hour of driving. There's not anything.
And again, it's
then.
also that creativity of them being able to, they may not be as technical. You know, I remember talking to someone who was worked for Prince, and they said, well, most of my day is just sitting around. But
who is that? I have a ton of friends that work for Prince. So
I don't know if I don't know if I should say it here, but anyway,
okay, that's fine. No worries.
So anyway, but he said that, you know, you get this call in the middle of the night going, I want this tune to this tune to this tune to, you know, like it would just get this thing, and his job was to get up there, get everything set up, and he said the Prince would just come in and just record a whole song and then go back to bed. Like you just you know, just come in and just record and just track the whole thing. But his job was to make sure that everything was perfect as soon as he showed up, and that he didn't have to think about anything, and it was all just this kind of and it was just that but he knew exactly what he wanted. A lot of artists don't. You know, they have a sense of where they're trying to get to. But I think that a lot of times they lose creativity because they spend so much time messing around with the gear. Like, you know, like they're...
Well, yeah. And like, to your point exactly, is the second, and this is like, everything comes down to efficiency to me. It's so important, no matter what the thing is in a live situation.
Well, and when I say efficiency, I guess when a lot of times, because I work with a lot of artists, and a lot of it is, we can call it efficiency, but a lot of times what we say is that we want them to be able to be present. We want them to be able to be in the space that they want to be in. The efficiency gives them the space to be creative. And they're not thinking about anything other than the art. And the goal is anything that they're thinking about that is not their art is something that we failed at.
Exactly.
Or we want to minimize that thought process.
Well, like the second something's not working, it's already dead. The vibe, the energy of the thing, it's just deflated. And if it's a 10-minute thing, if it's a 2-minute thing, all right, you can kind of recover from that. But if you have a thing that just stops something for it's like you might as well just come back the next day, because it can just come. It really, a lot of this stuff is lightning in a bottle. I mean, it really, part of like producing records, the real job to me as a producer is to make the artist feel like they want to play better for you than anyone ever, right? Make them feel amazing, make them feel completely supported, right? So for me to do that, I have to have the equipment that supports me. And so that's why I make the choices I make in just, you know, what I have here for sure.
Bill, you had a question.
Yeah, just a couple of real quick questions. Number one, I just wanted to take you through a little thought experiment. If everything that you had disappeared for a second and somebody was asking you, I need like a basic start for 4 mics, not brand an item, but an approach, what would you look for if you were on that desert island? You just had to have 4 mics to record somebody. Classes.
Oh, like what microphones would I choose? I mean,
where would you start? Where would you start learning about microphone use with what types of mics?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, for me, for anyone who's starting out from scratch, like the most overlooked thing, I see this all the time. You'll see people with big studios, tons of gear, and then they have really cheap speakers. It is every time I'm like, thumbs down. Nope, you failed. Like, absolutely. Get the
monitoring
good speakers
first.
Absolutely. I would, if I lost all of this, if I could only keep a couple things, honestly, the speakers and the laptop are the first ones to keep, right? I have a machine that will do the task, and I have something that will really accurately tell me what I'm listening to. Nothing's more important than that. And even more so than that, the acoustic treatment in your room, these speakers, I mean, this stuff is insanely premium, right? And it costs premium, right? In every regard to this. If my room has tons of reflections, why? I mean, I've been mixing on a $300,000 D&B rig in Lincoln Hall for the last 15 years. Every day, pretty much, that room is fully treated. It's like a studio. If you took that treatment out, it might sound horrible. That PA would do nothing. You could replace it with just like a whatever, anything, because you're just listening to a bunch of terrible physics. Right. So I think that's
what about mic transducers specifically? Are there specific kinds of microphones that you just love?
Absolutely. And again, before you get to microphones, because microphones are very important, but preamps are everything. So your preamps, $100 microphones sound like $1,000 microphones with good pre's. And that's the thing that people need to really understand. It's very, very real. So give me a bucket of 57s and good preamps over
You're
something
happy.
that's, I mean, like, you can give me a bucket of whatever and good preamps. It's
and list okay, the Neve design preamps. What are other manufacturers of great preamps that you like?
Oh, so honestly, I'm just living in a Rupert Neve Designs world these days. I'll tell you this: I'm not a gearhead at all, and this is an endless sea. It's like a black hole that you can fall into of all this gear. Okay, for me, Rupert Neve is one of the greatest. And I'm not coming on here to just start pushing Neve products or anything. This is for me personally and why I use this stuff. He's one of the greatest minds I have in the history of audio. I have no interest. I'm not an engineer in that kind of way. I don't want to. It's just not what I do. Right. So I know he spent all that time doing that. He did it the best. I'm good. I don't want to sit here and swim around gear. I want to get the gear that will do the job that I need, and then I want to not think about it ever again. I have to work on these songs, on these productions. That's what it is. So any gear that I buy is really just about it facilitating the need that I have, right? So Rupert Neve Designs gear for me, it is so incredibly open. It is so transparent. I can push it as hard as I want. It's so reactive. It's so responsive. It's just amazing. You can listen to I just did Rick Beato and Jimmy Chamberlain. We did an interview, and you can hear I recorded and mixed Jimmy's just the drum portion of that, and it's that's raw audio pretty much. It's raw audio through my drum template, and I added a little bit of top end to it. So I wanted to keep it very, very just as raw as possible. This is just them, I didn't want a crazy, overly produced thing here. It should just be a dynamic, open, sound like it would in the room. And you can go on ahead and the last half hour or so of that interview, he's just doing demonstration. You can check it out. But what it's giving me is so incredibly perfect. I want for nothing else. So I don't search for anything else. That's done. I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah,
So, but there's API is amazing, and Shadow Hills is amazing, and SSL and all this stuff. There's all this amazing Class A circuitry.
Well, and we tell people all the time, that in our show we talk about the fact that they're like, well, I could plug the mic into the camera, and I'm like, okay, well that preamp is $10. It doesn't, it's not gonna, you're only gonna get so far.
It just gets crazy.
Yeah.
It's super wild. And I don't know if I can kind of give you guys a little rundown here of what I have happening here. And I'll start this in a very just rudimentary fashion in case people aren't real experienced here. But essentially you have your computer, which runs your software. You have to have something that talks to microphones, letting them, incoming signals speak to the computer and then out to speakers, right? So I've got my laptop, my interface, which handles essentially my inputs and outputs.
And what are you using as the interface?
My I/O. So this is an Avid Matrix Studio, which is really just the most flexible, insane box ever. And absolutely a huge thank you to Matt Lawrence, Andrew Riley, and especially Jeff Komar, the smartest guy in the world, because they are just the absolute best. The flexibility of this unit is just insane, and you can just do anything you want with it. It's so customizable. It's quite a learning curve. But it's amazing. And it's all digital audio Denmark converters. So it is very, very Class A, and just it sounds fantastic. And I went for the Thunderbolt card. There's an optional Thunderbolt card that you can get in this thing, and just let it run natively, or you can run it through HDX systems or whatever. But now with the amount of power I have in this laptop, it's just it doesn't matter. I can, it makes a lot more sense to not be chained to a DSP level thing. And I do have, I've got DSP Octo satellites from Universal Audio and stuff like that. But more as far as the flow of this stuff, we have our computer, we've got our interface.
And what are you using for the computer? What's your computer?
Right now, it's a MacBook Pro M3 Max, just kind of like a blown out machine. It's It's awesome. I went and I just recorded, I don't know if you guys know McGee, mk.gee. So I was just out in New York. We strapped him to the roof of a bus and drove around in New York in a rainstorm while he played on the roof. So I was so if you watch that video, I'm under him in the bus under a tarp because it's raining.
Right.
With like, a $40,000 rack. Just
pulling in.
bouncing, with a rack just, strapped to a bus seat. It was it was quite an adventure. So those guys are amazing. So essentially this guy, sorry, I apologize. I'm all over the place here.
It's all good.
But this feeds 16 channels analog through D-sub out of the Avid Matrix into a 16-channel Rupert Neve. It's the 5057 Orbit. It's just 16 line amps in, and it's got dual tap output transformers. So you can choose a line out or a -6, which is amazing. That falls into a master bus processor, also Rupert Neve Designs, which is just an incredible piece of gear. It really, it's like 30 different compressors, and it's got a stereo field editor and just a ton of operation. It's a really deep unit, and it is just like an absolute joy every time I play with it. And then that falls into this converter. So this is my ADC, my analog to digital converter. So this essentially, it has a really premium analog limiter in it. And also these things all have harmonic saturation. It's got optional transformers and all kinds of fun toys. And this all actually culminates out of this box. It's hit analog, but it leaves digitally through AES, and that hits an AES to Dante adapter that I have and feeds back into the Matrix.
Makes the Dante? Yeah, we have to add.
So this, I think it's AVIO.
Oh, that's Audinate.
Yes, it's Audinate. Yes, there you go. Yep. So I have very little experience with Dante. I never use it. I had to get it really only just because I needed the connection to get back into here. And actually, this spits out on the output end. The Matrix actually goes back through that adapter, and then that hits this Grace M905. And so and this is just a monitor controller, and it is just absolutely the greatest thing ever, and that feeds the speakers directly.
That's great.
So,
and what speakers?
And so for speakers, the main course. So I have PMC 6.2s.
Oh, nice.
And so like all of these guys, and also just a huge shout out for Rupert Neve to Josh, Chris, and Jonathan. Just all these guys are incredible. The folks at PMC are incredible. These guys are so helpful, and they're so knowledgeable about what they're doing. A lot of these really premium companies, they're like all engineers. Yeah. So they're not like little engineers. They've got massive credits and are highly, highly skilled. So you end up tapping into these communities of really, really just renowned and dedicated, incredibly passionate people that, for me, it's more and more this stuff gets diluted, and it's really important for me to have a face and a name to call. Yeah. If something's not working,
no, I'm the same way.
Dude, I'm not sending a ticket. Nope,
there's
I'm
definitely
calling
a lot of companies
that
we work with because I got a phone number. When something's exactly. That definitely makes a difference.
Like all day. And so for me, it's just you, right? This is your community. This is all about weaving community, right? Which is very much what you guys are doing here with this show. I mean, it's really an incredible thing that you're doing, and it's really important. So I really thank you all for having me.
Thanks for being on. It's great, Mickey.
Yeah, hey, Chris. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, dude.
Curious, you mentioned you have an M905. Like, what functionality do you get out of the M905 that you don't get with, say, the Matrix Studio with the built-in SPQ processor with the Dadman and the mom controller?
Good for you. So you already know all the stuff. So that is a great question. It's at this point I have ridiculous options for conversion alone in here, right? I've got Neve converters, I have DAD converters, I've got a 8XR Prism that you guys can't see that's under here that's actually just kind of a standalone unit for right now. The Grace, honestly, it was just the thing I kind of drooled over for forever. And this, there's some different iterations of these units, and this one has it's got the D to A built in as well, and it is so incredibly premium. And not that these other things aren't. I absolutely could be using just going from the Matrix, and that would be fine. Really, why I got the Grace is I had an X16 actually before, and that got switched. So I actually had the Grace before I switched to the Matrix Studio, and I'm not giving this thing up, man. This is like, I'll take this to my grave. It's if I like had to keep two things, I mean, it would have to be my, the Grace and the PMCs, just because the level of what you're receiving back, it's
with the tuning as well.
Actually, my stuff's flat. I don't even use any of the DSP. My room is, I don't even know why these things have DSP in them. They sound so good. It's like, guys, make your room right. It's really, I understand people have to work in some pretty challenging situations, and like I was just talking about, recording on the back of a city bus, so I understand there are those aspects. But if you're really if you're building a studio, I'm sorry, that the treatment is the cheapest part of this, and it's the most important thing. It absolutely is. We
talk about all kinds of like the mics belong, you have to, a lot of things sound really good if the room sounds good. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I didn't really fully answer the microphone question, so I can actually jump back to that. I'm realizing for actual, if you want like real mic, like actual models, SM7s, what I'm speaking on now, are just the best. Give me a bucket of them. They're incredibly low output. I will tell you, a lot of people throw like cloud lifters on these things, which is a really, really affordable way to really get a lot more signal. If you are working on little, $150.
Now, I have to admit that we all, the general statement here is friends don't let friends use cloud lifters.
I got to say, they sound awful.
Yeah,
and so the real thing,
a lot of us have cloud lifters in our bag. Like if I absolutely don't have any other option, I can pop this. It's like pull the ripcord, but that's all it is.
And just the level of difference if you get a good preamp. And remember, I mean, you can get a killer preamp for $500. You can, and also look at like
what's a killer preamp for $500?
I mean, Grace makes an amazing. If you're going to get into 500 series racks, I mean, now you're going to have to buy a chassis, so that's a little bit of money up front. But then you're totally. I don't have any 500 series stuff, but you can totally, probably $500 to $800. Find something in there that's great. But I mean, there's I think it was the 201 maybe from Grace. Dude, they were like $499. They were. Yeah. It's just like, it's probably the closest thing to an Avalon that I can think of. I mean, it's just a really hot, very clean, very premium sounding thing, and it's insanely usable. So there's a lot of different options in there. But as far as like for microphones specifically, I think I loved like just the Sound Deluxe mics. So those are a ton. My new absolute favorite microphones that we just started using for Jimmy Chamberlain's overheads are these Schoeps Colettes with an ultra wide capsule. And oh man, I almost yelled at my buddy who lent them to me. We used them for the Beato thing, and I was like, why didn't you just like slap me and make me buy these 10 years ago or whenever they came out? Because they're so fun and they sound so good. They have the least color change off axis out of anything I've ever heard. They're amazing. So those are, I'm like kind of gaga for those things right now. Also the Shure Beta 181s, I use a lot of live mics. If you guys get proper preamps and just get a bag of dynamic Shure mics, or whatever. And I mean, also like their KSM 32s, I use those on kick drums all the time. I mean, there's a lot of options here. The 181s are probably one of the most versatile microphones I've ever used.
That's great.
They're hammers. These things they're just going to work.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Let's. We got a couple questions stacking up from all over the world.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think.
Let's
we're going
to
jump into a couple of them. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go to the first.
Peter John Golden of Santiago, Chile's in with this one. MrGelin's sound is very good. What is he using? So they're looking for your mic. I think you might have just touched on it.
Honestly, I'm using this guy. So this is the original SM7. This was actually my first mic. I got this when I was a teenager or something. I bought it from it was the Trading Times. I don't think they're around anymore, but before the internet, you'd get these Trading Times magazines, and they had equipment stuff. So I bought this used, and it's just going directly into the Avid Matrix. So I'm just using a stock preamp for it. But really, the reason that this sounds good is because my room is insanely treated.
Yeah.
That is fully. If I switch to just my laptop's microphone, it sounds the same.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. Would you ever use Audiomovers Inject to inject your digital audio workstation audio into the Zoom audio pipeline, bypassing Listento?
Oh, gotcha. You know what? I honestly can't really think of me doing that. I don't even really know how to do that. And it's for me, Zoom is really just a remote control, and it's the remote control and me sharing my desktop. That's its only functionality in the way that I use it. So for me, that's just extra steps because it's already done. All I'm doing is copying and texting out of Pro Tools. So I don't see the need for extra steps, anything to streamline.
And your whole workflow is all stereo, so you're not doing any kind of immersive.
Correct.
Or have you thought about that? Is there a reason? Are you
my ceiling's not tall enough to I can't do that in here right now. And also it's just not a thing I've dove into a ton. I have friends with Atmos rooms, and I could absolutely, although I'm a little scared to do that with PMC. But man, would that be amazing? There's no other way I would do it. So right. It's like, yeah, it's not impossible that I could go that route. I'm sure I'll expand into a larger space at some point, and we'll look at that stuff then.
Absolutely. Next question.
Going to Dave Troutman in Edmonton, Canada. Is Neve designed mostly for studio, or can it serve well in a large live space?
Oh, absolutely. You can absolutely use this stuff live. All of my people that are touring folks are all full of just Neve gear and racks. Absolutely.
And specifically Neve design. That was
of Rupert Neve designs. Yeah. And because they're 5045, their primary source enhancer is, that's probably one of the hottest things that you will see in any rack out in live sound now, which is essentially just like this insane gate that really, with different algorithms, I believe, that really, really can just bring your source up front, especially if you're in these really, really chaotic situations. I'm not a touring guy at all, and so I'm not out there dealing with mixing in arenas or anything, but my friends are, and it's right. This brings a lot of issue. If you're in the back of an arena and you're listening to the swell in the roof, and it's a dome, as most of them are, right? And this is swooping up behind you. You're listening to the show after it's happening behind you. Right. Yeah. So how do you make good choice? So a lot of these guys actually will bring PMCs, for example, and have a pair of them at front of house mix so they can have a realistic depiction of what their image is right there in just a less obstructed kind of way,
Where's the best place? So you're mixing for a space. Where do you want that console to be?
Oh, really, you want it to be. There's kind of a measurement here with speakers for a listening space. And again, this really it drastically just depends on what the situation is. So many systems should be mono. Mm-hmm. So many systems should be mono that are stereo. It's really, if you think about it, right? If let's say you've got these two speakers and this is the crowd, okay? Everyone over here, say you're panning a guitar here. Everyone here is now not hearing that guitar, and they're hearing only what's panned on this side, right? And vice versa on the other side. So really your center of the room is the only people, they're the only ones that are really going to get a full stereo image of that, which is why, there's a lot of corrections as far as delay speakers. And this gets insanely diverse and
for
complex,
us, for those of us who do a lot of stuff in theaters, our big thing is that's why we love the center channel on a 5.1 is because I can put the stuff that I want everyone to hear right down that center channel and then add a little bit of flavor on either side.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But when you're in a live, let's say you're going to live venue, where do you want your console? Where do you want to be hearing the music?
Oh, I mean,
so
I
that you mix
usually,
it?
it's kind of the same rule. I mean, really, you make a triangle and you want to be an equal distance from the speakers as they are from each other.
And do you want to be
that's
kind of in the middle of the crowd, back of the crowd? You know,
I
like
mean,
where
it just
if you
depends.
get to design it.
I mean, for me, it just really depends on the space because like real estate is really important. And if you're going to put a big sound booth in that eats up 50 people standing there, and all of a sudden you're losing, you know, $2,000 a night in real estate, that's not necessarily a smart choice.
Right.
So you have to there's a lot of things to actually just figure out and take into consideration. Everything is its own thing. That's the only rule I have is never do anything automatically. Always treat everything as its own thing.
The most popular response to every question, we've answered probably 55,000 questions in the last 4 years, and the most popular answer is, it depends. It depends on what.
Because it's the only, and it's like the worst thing to say, but the only realistic response.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Next question.
Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand's up next. Thoughts on how Behringer is bringing prices down on gear, as well as things like the UBXA synth, offering both affordable prices and decent quality.
Oh, I mean, you know, honestly, Behringer is just not in my purview very much. But just because of just the level of not anything, you know, there's a place for everything. And Behringer, I mean, they have. You know, Behringer, I mean, they're kind of the new Mackie in a way that, like, when Mackie consoles came out, you know, way back when, especially Mackies and ADATs, okay? This was the first time that people could actually have, like, studio functionality in their little rehearsal space that wasn't going to be, like, an insane amount of money. So, it's just, I think that there's a huge resource in people actually being able to access feature sets within their budgets because they still have to get their jobs done. Not everybody has budget for Neve consoles or for PMCs or whatever. And there's a lot of, like, there's definitely a huge spectrum in that. And I think it just depends. It just depends on what the job is and what's happening. In some places, if you're not going to have a bunch of pro engineers in there, don't get a bunch of pro stuff. It doesn't make sense because I'll say this, with anything, the more premium something gets, the more feature sets and the more customizable it is, right? And so if you can easily fall into a hole where it's asking you all these options for things that you don't even know what they are, whereas, you know, something that was much more streamlined. I mean, like when I mix as Billy Corrigan over at his tea shop at Madame Zuzu's, I just mixed the Siamese Dream, the 30-year anniversary show there, right? It was an acoustic show, and they have it's like a completely just basic setup. They have like it's an Allen and Heath QU16 maybe. I mean, this is like. It's kind of in the gray area between an analog and a digital setup because their barista needs to be able to maybe get like a singer-songwriter up. They shouldn't have a big expensive desk.
Now, what did you bring to that though? So they have that. They have you know, a little Allen Heath. What did you when you came to mix it? I mean,
my iPad.
Your iPad, right? Exactly. You're running on an iPad.
There's no room. There's nope.
Is there anything you tried to push a little bit to get a little bit more quality out of it? Is it
that's just an insane. You know, I've done a bunch of these shows over there, and it's and they're just insane because you're in this you know, it's a tea shop. There, you know, there's 100-something people crammed into this space, and it's like, you know, and it's the Pumpkins or like, you know, Perry Farrell shows up. I just did we just recorded. Jimmy Chamberlain with Mike Garson, which is like, I mean, just this is incredible. These are just some of the greatest players in the world. I mean, it's such a joy. So again, like you take that and I'm mixing this on an iPad, and none of this is the stuff that they would have in any type of real like pro situation out in the world, but it's like a mind-blowing concert. Everyone's
The
completely
experience is amazing.
dumbfounded. Yeah, because what they're doing is like impossible to play. It's
Now, where's
so
that
good.
recording? You're recording that as a series. It's not. Is it? Are you primarily?
I was just facilitating live sound for that. So
they're not recording. They're not recording. It's just really there for the people that are there.
No, it was recorded, but they just the Pumpkins engineer came in, and so I was doing redundant recording and live sound, and then he came in with more of a legitimate tracking setup. But it was all just, it was just a easy analog split, and it's all very basic stuff in that because you want to keep it streamlined. There's no space for anything. It's just a different kind of animal, But if we're doing, like a lot of these things, there's a broadcast that goes into it as well, and so we may have a full set of broadcast engineers for any time we're doing that. That's it's absolutely an in-depth thing. There's a lot of moving parts.
Absolutely. So next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. NBC will be broadcasting the Paris Olympics opening ceremony to IMAX theaters. Would there be challenges in mixing a live immersive mix along with a stereo mix from one console?
Oh wow, I'm sure this holds like and I'll say that's not, I don't do a ton of broadcast mixing myself. I'm usually handling more in the room, and then it's in collusion with with other engineers. But you're like, just think about this, okay? Is you have whoever is there talking, right? What if, right? And this is the big issue that people fight at, like, let's say like a Taylor Swift show, is that the crowd is so loud. They're louder than anything. The crowd is screaming louder than the PA can get. How do you fix that? How do you deal with all these things? So like in the Olympics, you're dealing with so many people. It's such a huge thing. I can't imagine that there's anything simple about any aspect of that.
Well, and I think that the delivery nowadays for a lot of broadcasts is 5.1, or something, or Atmos or other things like that. I mean, a lot of that stuff is being delivered. Yeah. It's not even stereo. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think a lot of that stuff gets folded down. It's not it's not something you have to mix as much explicitly as you used to.
I've never mixed surround. I don't do any Atmos stuff. I mean, it's obviously a completely different world, but also the thing with Atmos is most people can't play it. So it's, at any kind of like consumer level.
Well, for us, what's really changed is Apple, like Apple saying we're going to put all this stuff into everything, even though it's not true surround. The immersive stuff that Apple's added has created this explosion of, we can put things, we can start spreading things out and everything else. Most of my work is in 5.1 and above.
I got to say, just sitting here, even though I'm in stereo, it's really immersive. The PMCs, they'll wrap around you. It's like, the only thing I've heard is I've never heard music sound like that before. Yeah. And I'm like, I know, it's just crazy. So
that's great. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me, guys.
It's so great to have you here. So
absolute blast. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, really, really fun to have you on. So we'll keep on trying to pull you in every once in a while, have you join us.
I would love to, absolutely. So I really appreciate everyone's time here today.
All right, thank you so much. And thanks to the panelists. I can't do this without you. So this is our audio day, of course, and so we had some great audio questions. We want to thank the panelists for being here to answer all these questions every single week, to talk about audio every single day, 7 days a week, to talk about all your other things that you have questions about. And we're here as you're working on these things. You can see people kind of working on their studios, working on ideas. The reason we're here every day is so that you can ask those questions, and because we do that because we have great panelists. So thank you to the panelists for being here today, and thanks to the incredible team on the back end. This is a little village that comes up. It takes solid 10 to 20 people to get this all working every day, and they all volunteer their time, and we really appreciate the time that it takes to develop the tools that we use for this program, to run it, to manage it, to figure out who to prep people, all those things that are required to have this show actually happen. We appreciate your contribution, and thanks to the producers out there listening to the show, asking all these questions and making sure that it's a real short show without your questions. so we really appreciate you listening to this and throwing those questions in and keeping this show moving. Today, the Tlaloc Traversal, if we had to walk around and ask these questions from place to place to place to place, we would have traveled 70,000 miles today. That's 113,000 kilometers, and that is 557 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Thanks, Chris. That was great. Yeah, so
Great.
Yeah, really, really fun hour. So it was good.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're just under credits.
You guys
now.
are fantastic.
Yeah, so much fun. So much fun.
Alex, have we worked together? Have you ever been to Lincoln Hall? You look so familiar, and I
think
swear
we have.
worked.
I'm sure that we worked together, and I just can't. I was trying to place it most of the hour.
Dude,
I was like,
and I was like, I know this guy. I've absolutely worked with this dude. What? Do you do any like the consequence of sound or like sound opinions or any of that kind of like?
No, I don't. I mean, I do a lot of live production too, so I think we may have worked together. I think, and I just can't. I know that we've worked together, and I just can't figure out.
Have you done anything at Lincoln Hall?
I have, but it was a long.
I did opening night there. I've been there, dude. I was there from like opening night till 2 weeks ago.
Think of
2 weeks ago.
Right. I'm trying to think of what I did there.
What's it? Who was? Alex was R&D.
Yeah, I have to. I know. I just can't think. I can't think of the show that I did there. I know I've been there.
Oh,
I've been in there. So
I don't know. Kyle's saying that you did something years